Hey there, my friends, Dan Deegan here, and welcome to another one. Now, I apologize, I didn't get one of these out for probably the last 2 weeks now. I've been away, been out riding with my son, and today I wanted to share with you the 4 big lessons I learned from going over my handlebars about 27 times. It's the best I can figure that I went over my handlebars. Here's a little compilation of what actually happened.
Did that?
Right. So now that you've seen that, it's time we get rocking. Okay, so what does failure have in common with success? You know, it's kind of one thing as you start attempting something new. So just kind of give you some background. Every time I failed going over my handlebars, it was in what was called the backcountry. So I've been trail riding for years, for decades. I love it. But it's gotten to a point where it's the same thing, right? It's a turn, it's a corner, it's a straightaway, it's a turn, it's a corner, it's a straightaway, which is where you might be in your sales, right? It's a phone call, it's an email, it's a phone call, it's an email. It gets a little bit boring, gets a little mundane. So you try something different. Maybe you try and spice up an email, maybe you try and spice up a phone call. It doesn't work. So you try something else, but then you get frustrated and you stop doing it. This is the same thing I'm finding when I try to learn this new style of backcountry. I mean, there's things called hopovers, there's things called wrong foot forward, there's neutral positioning, there's back positioning. And here's the one big thing that I learned, okay? And this is from all the failures. If you don't learn something every time you fail, you will never get to the next step. And what do I mean by that? Well, for snowmobiling, it was, okay, I should have jumped and hopped over a minute or a couple of seconds earlier. And that what happened is I didn't. On one of those, you saw I kind of came over the hill and the littlest bump threw me off. That's because I started on the wrong foot forward. As the snowmobile came over, I didn't jump back to neutral. And that 1 second without jumping back to neutral is the difference between landing that and not, and falling off, right? So that's what I mean by, really, if we don't learn something on the failure, the next attempt doesn't get any better, right? So when we're on a phone call, if we have a new strategy, if we have a new thing we want to share, if we have a new kind of 10-second elevator pitch that we want to give before we ask a question, if we give it and we don't learn from what didn't go right and apply the countermeasure, if you will, to the next time we try it, we're going to lose every time. Very, very big. And, I don't believe we put enough time or thought into the new process, and which keeps us kind of stuck in this same old, right? So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is, before you go into that next attempt, remind yourself of the tweak. Because what I found happened is, when I would try a trick, when I would try a new style, if I didn't remind myself, okay, so as soon as I crest the hill, remember to go neutral and do that the second earlier, because last time, the second later, you fell. Or, hey, you know what? Next time, go and put your hand in the snow so you don't hit that tree again, because you don't know where the cliff drops off. But you have to remind yourself. And the reason being is we're so used to doing things a certain way, right? That sometimes, if you ever had it happen, where you're like, damn, I should have done that, because last time I did the same thing and I got the same result. I should have done it again. So remind yourself before going into that second situation of what you learned in the first situation by not doing A, B, or C right, or maybe doing it a second late, or maybe replying too early. You're on a sales call and you're talking. You ever been in a position where, you're saying, okay, so do we have a go? And there's like a second of silence. You're like, you know what? I'll even drop the rate $50. It's like you just lost because of that second of silence, right? So if we're doing this in our sales, it's the second key is remind yourself of what you learned and what you need to focus on for that call. Because here's the thing, it's kind of like your golf swing, right? If you've got a good setup and you got a great takeaway, But your problem is the way you start releasing the downswing, you don't think of your takeaway. All you do is you think of, okay, so when I reach the top, I need to initiate my downswing with my hips as opposed to initiating with my arm that's going to come over. So in certain areas of our sales, it's like, we got that. That part's good. I know how to open the conversation. What I need to do is I need to start with a better qualifying question. So the last time I asked this qualifying question, I forgot to add XYZ. You go through that in your mind. So all you're thinking of is adding XYZ into that second piece of the puzzle, because that's what reminds us to take that step to a higher elevation, a higher level of awareness in our business, right? Number 3. I've realized it doesn't always go from failure to success. You sometimes have great success that turns into massive failure. So the process or the step-by-step formula is not always failure success. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, this works, and it works for a week, and then it never works again. So sometimes you have success. Why did it succeed? Figure that out. Ask the questions, Hey, I'm doing some market research. What made you listen to me 3 months ago when I called you? What was the purpose? What was it? What was it that made you listen to me, right? It might not go failure, success. It might go success, failure. Number 4, what most people make look easy is usually pretty difficult. Leading up to this trip, I watched months of YouTube videos. I sat on my sled, did my jump overs, did my hop overs, did my wrong foot forward, hop over to wrong foot forward. Watching the videos of people that have done it for a decade, it looks real easy. When I went to do it in the moment, it wasn't so easy. Sales, from a baseline perspective, here's your cold call, here's your follow-up, here's your follow-up, here's your follow-up, here's your interest, here's your meeting, here's your close. It's a simple sequence. Not always when you're involved in it. So when I say, people make it look easy when it's actually difficult, understand that sometimes the challenges, you're going to sit there and say, but it's so easy for that person and it's not easy for me. It's just because they've been doing it longer. Stick with the fight, stick with it, and you will achieve your greatness. Now remember, like and subscribe if you like these videos. This was just kind of a flash, 4 lessons I learned from riding with my son for the last week, from going over my handlebars 27 times that I can relate back to sales. And, think about it in your own life. Like, what analogies can you relate back to your sales that help you think through these issues and challenges? Remember, like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the High Performance Logistics Sales. Until then, go out there, make every call educational, crush your sales, and make sure you're only one applied idea away from everything you ever wanted. Take care.